Hi, I'm Caroline Mitchell, canine behaviourist at Good Doggy. My clients are regularly questioning where their dog's behaviour has come from. Did they cause it? Did they love their dog too much? Or is their dog being just very naughty? And very rarely do I come across a dog that's behaving in a problematic way just to be naughty. That requires quite a lot of sort of planning and devious kind of behaviour, and just dogs are not set for that. They do what works for them at the time, and they do what's worked for them in the past. So very, very, very rarely would I ever say a dog has done something because they're just being intentionally naughty. Also, behaviour problems do not come about because people love their dogs too much. So we can quickly debunk both of those. Being loved, having meaningful connections in humans, but also all mammals in the world benefit from feeling a connection with their mother or with their most dearest loved ones. So for humans, we could find that connection in our partners and in our children, in our parents, in our really good friends. For dogs, it will be us as their caregivers, the other pets in the house maybe. Even rats feel this connection with their mum, and what happens when they get this connection and when they get a hug, when they get fed by their mum, it gives them security. It releases oxytocin, which reduces anxiety, and not just in that moment. That oxytocin hangs around and gives them a boost of confidence in general. So having a safe platform to work from, having safe connections really does boost good behaviour, and it will reduce anxiety. So you can't love your dog too much and cause behaviour problems, and your dog probably isn't being naughty. So what maybe has caused behaviour problems in your dog? There's quite a few different things, and I'm going to run through them all really quickly. The first one is their health. So undiagnosed pain or even diagnosed pain, any kind of health problems, illnesses, injuries, underlying conditions, all of those types of things can cause difficult, erratic, anxious behaviour in our dogs. They cause them to change the way they behave. Anything from an earache to a broken leg to diabetes will change their behaviour, and not always in an obvious way. So just because you can't see the pain, just because your dog doesn't seem to be limping, or they're not crying if you touch their ears, or they're not shaking their head, or any of those things, licking their paws, just because it's not an obvious pain, it doesn't mean that it doesn't affect their behaviour. Especially chronic pain, ongoing pain, stuff that we can't see can really take its toll. It can prevent sleep, it can stop nutrients being digested properly and absorbed, which the dog obviously needs to feel healthy and well. But just being in constant pain can also cause grumpy behaviour. Once you add all of these things together, then it's no surprise that our dog's behaviour is going to change. Most likely it's going to cause things like reactive behaviour, but if your dog has associated pain with certain activities, it could cause anxiety and aggression in those areas. If it's to do with food, it could cause food aggression, possession, territorial aggression. So there's plenty of reasons why you should get your dog checked for pain or any kind of underlying conditions if you've noticed behaviour problems in your dog. Very often I suggest it's the first place people go, because once you've ruled all of that out, then it means we've only left with the behaviour problems and we can get on with it. You can't train a dog to be less reactive when they've got constant earaches. Until the earache is gone, there's not much that we can do that will change that. So it really is important to get the health ruled out first as a potential cause of a behaviour problem. Then we can talk about previous experience. I kind of already touched on this a little bit. Just like us, dogs remember when things go well or when they don't go well, and they start to form expectations about what might happen next based on what has happened in the past. If I go to a coffee shop every day and they always give me an upgrade for free, at some point I'm going to start to expect that I'm going to get a free upgrade. And when I don't get that means my expectations were not met. on that time, and that will change the way I behave and the way I feel about that coffee shop. With dogs, if they go and meet a dog and that dog is grumpy with them, they might start to expect that that would happen in the future, depending on how emotional and how bold that experience was and how it affected them at the time, might affect how many times that needs to happen in order that this will then change their behaviour permanently. So if they have an experience with one grumpy dog, that might put them off the next time they see another dog, and it might change the way they behave with that dog a little bit. Perhaps they're a little bit more cautious. But if that situation turns out to be fine, and then the next one is fine, and the next one is fine, eventually they forget about it. But maybe they become a little bit defensive, and that changes the other dog's behaviour because it's a two-way kind of system there. Then that behaviour, then that dog might behave defensively back at your dog again, and before you know it, your dog's expectations are that every time they meet a dog, they're going to experience defensive behaviour that they don't like, and that's how that can escalate. Anytime a dog has a fear of pain, has a fear of a bad experience, perhaps like with that dog meeting another dog and not getting a good reception, but also it doesn't have to be bad experiences that form the way our dog's behaviour is formed. It could be they're expecting something lovely and wonderful. So whenever you come home from work and you open the front door, their expectation is you're going to be pleased to see them. They're going to run over to you, get lots of pats, get lots of love. So that's a really good experience for them, and they will remember that they get that whenever you come in through the door, and that will affect how they behave next time. So basically, whatever their expectations are, will affect how they manage situations in the future. I did a whole video about unfulfilled needs. Check that out because this is a huge driver of behaviour. It's well worth a look, so you can learn more about how needs change the way our dogs feel, and how that can affect their kind of future choices. But basically our needs are everything from security to hunger to social needs, and when our needs are not being met, that changes the way that we behave. So in terms of things like being sociable, think about sociable behaviour. Think of a cup, and every time your dog experiences a situation where they are sociable with another dog, they meet a dog, they play, that cup starts to fill up. And once the cup is full, then they feel like that need has been fulfilled properly and fully, and they can be content about that need. Many of our dogs, especially when it comes to socialization, that's why I mentioned that one in particular, feel the cup never really gets full up. This will affect your dog's behaviour if you're having trouble with things like recall, if your dog's constantly running over to other dogs, if they are lunging and shouting at other dogs because they want to get to them and play with them, they want to be friendly. This might be because the socialization cup hasn't been properly filled up yet. So that once that cup has never filled, they're never going to feel content about that need, and they're always going to be driving to get it. So once the need has not been filled, it becomes very, very important, and it overrides other training that you're doing. So you might train your dog to walk beautifully on a nice loose lead, perfectly to heel. It might be just a beautiful thing you've worked really hard on that. But if that need to play and meet other dogs is not met, then your training becomes less relevant to your dog. That need will override that, and they'll attempt to fulfill that need. This could be the same with sexual behaviour, it could be the same with food, but the social need regularly gets unfulfilled, I think, in a lot of dogs, and more so now than ever, actually, because people do tend to walk their dogs separate from other people. We do try to avoid confrontation. Maybe even the dogs are fine, but we're concerned about how other people might react when our dog approaches their dog. There's a whole lot of politics that go on in the park, which actually does prevent a lot of people from allowing their dogs to become sociable. And this is what the kind of knock-on effect is, that it'll affect those other behaviours and training. So there's no amount of training you can do that will override a dog's basic survival needs. So check that video out if you think that might be a thing for you, because it's a really good video just about all of the needs: security, food, sociable needs, confidence, all of that. It's all I talked about in there. I'll put a link to that just for you. I talked about sociable needs. Security needs is probably the second most neglected need, perhaps. Some dogs have higher needs for security. So again, think about that cup. Some dogs have a very small cup when it comes to security. Anybody can come and go from your house. People can walk past, and that's fine. Nobody cares who comes, and people could bring their neighborhood dogs in to play. A person could come into your house during the day when you're not even there. Your dog is completely okay with all of that. Other dogs have a very high level of security requirement. I'm thinking of our little terriers and dogs like that who actually feel like they do need that control. They need to feel that the place is more secure. These are the dogs that will be on guard a lot. They'll be staring out the window. They'll bark at everything that happens, every noise. In the garden, they'll probably mark out the fence routinely. When you let them out for the toilet, the first thing they'll do is a good lap of the garden because they want to quickly have a quick check and scan to see who's been in, who hasn't been in. If that pesky cat from next door has been over the fence during the night, your dog will know about that in the morning. Their scent will be really strong in your garden, so they'll be looking for stuff like that. So this could be a problem for some dogs, and particularly if you live in a very busy kind of area where there are paths and thoroughfares. People can walk past your house. Maybe the park backs onto your garden. You thought this was a great spot to live because you'd be able to just walk out the back door and out the back gate and into the park. But actually for your dog that's quite territorial and has high security needs, that could be terrifying because that is a huge area to defend and protect. Constant traffic going past there. If you lived in the middle of nowhere, your dog would be far more relaxed because the only thing coming in and out of your garden is going to be cats and squirrels and hedgehogs and things like that. But when you've also got all of the neighbourhood dogs running off lead, other dogs will be scent marking the other side of that fence as well. So that can be quite difficult for some dogs. And if you live on a corner and people are regularly passing, then if they can find that spot where they can guard the window, keep an eye on that whole corner, then they'll do that because they're driven to feel just more safe. They don't really understand locks on doors and windows and police and all of that kind of stuff. These measures we've taken to secure our properties, they don't understand any of that. What they understand is that people are constantly moving around near their place, and it makes them feel anxious because they have to keep this territory safe if nobody else is doing it. So that's a wee bit about needs. Unfulfilled needs are big drivers of behaviour. And think about sexual needs as well. If your dog is not neutered, then they will have very powerful sexual needs, and there's no training that's going to stop a dog from hunting down a lovely bitch in heat who is flirting nearby and spreading her scent around. Think about your teenage boys and girls. Those kind of sexual behaviours are really big, powerful drivers. Another thing that is very powerful when it comes to changing behaviour is the amount of stimulation that we give our dogs. And currently the trend tends to be to give more and more and more. Never before have we had so many ways of enriching our dogs' lives, so many different toys, so many different chews, things we can keep our dogs busy with all day. Chews will tell you this will keep your dog busy for an hour or 2 hours, and that's what we're looking for. And we think this is what we need to be doing for our dogs. We need to give them something to entertain them all day long. But actually, overstimulating our dogs has the opposite effect. The more we stimulate them with stuff like this, the more they need it. It's like a drug. So once you've given your dog a couple of enrichment toys and maybe some puzzles where they get to find their treats and things like that, they're craving more and more and more. These puzzles are very simple to do for dogs. Mostly once they've figured them out, it's just a case of blip, 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 job done, got my treats, puzzles finished. And they need more and they need more, these toys that jiggle and bounce all over the place. If we've got these things constantly out for our dogs, then they don't get a chance to rest. Another thing that prevents them from resting is the fact that for many of us, we get to spend more time at home now. Lots of people are doing hybrid working. They're working from home a lot more. And we're able to be company for our dogs more than we ever have been before. But what this does is this makes the house feel quite busy, and it stops our dogs having those moments of downtime that they used to have. When you used to go out to work in the morning for a couple of hours, the dog would just go to bed, they'd be bored, they'd go to sleep, and before they know it, you'd be back again. They've had their morning nap and they're ready for the rest of their day. But when we keep them busy all the time, they're not getting that rest, they're not getting to settle. Even in places where they might try to settle, people are busy coming and going. So Our dogs are very much overstimulated now, so they're struggling with things like separation anxiety, because once they've run out of stuff to do, now they're very busy. Their brain is busy, their brain is active, and they are looking for something to do. So if you've got a dog that maybe can cope for half an hour, but as soon as their licking mat's finished, they're now looking for mischief. Perhaps they feel like they're looking around the house, they're looking for something they can chew, they're looking for something they can tear, they can look at something to scratch at, they're looking to something to entertain them. Then potentially your dog might be overstimulated, and this is perhaps what's causing them to have this problem. So when they start looking for things to do, they get themselves into trouble because they chew things they shouldn't be chewing, they're moving around, they're looking for stuff. Just that movement and searching can stimulate bladder and bowel as well. So that can cause them then to have accidents during the day because they've not rested and they've not had a chance to kind of decompress from what they've had in the morning. Dogs need about 16 to 18 hours sleep in every 24-hour period. And this is really important because every time they go to sleep, they go through the 4 stages of sleep, REM, light sleep, etc. And part of that sleep process, that sleep cycle, doesn't just repair their body. So if you've got problems with health, then getting extra sleep is really important for that because the body repairs itself. But also mentally, everything your dog sees, smells, looks at, hears, experiences, all goes into their short-term memory. And if they don't get enough sleep, that doesn't get cleared out. So that gets really clogged up. And that can lead to overwhelm, which I'll talk about just in a wee minute. But that's why sleep is so important. So an overstimulated dog is going to lack all that sleep. They're not going to be able to settle. So being bored, teaching them to be bored, taking away all their toys from time to time so they can really settle, lifting up any food, treats, that kind of thing, and making the place feel really boring, make yourself really boring, stop doing the housework, just sit quietly, will give your dog a chance to sort of de-stimulate themselves. It is like a drug, so they'll not be great at this at the start. But once they get into the habit of doing this, then they will learn how to be bored and how to just be settled and content. So overstimulation, another big cause of overexcitement, separation anxiety, and general just not being able to settle. I mentioned overwhelm. So we know that when a dog has had lots and lots of experiences, those can clog up their brain, and if they don't get regular naps and sleep, then the brain will overload and then they'll go into kind of emergency mode. So the emergency brain will take over, and the emergency brain is not very good at making decisions. The emergency brain will make snap decisions based on very little information. This is the part of your brain that will suddenly notice something and you'll react to that, and then you'll suddenly just kick your brain back on again, your thinking brain, and you go, oh, I shouldn't have reacted to that. Maybe it was a dressing gown hanging on the back of your door. You've woken up in the night, you've seen it. To you, it looks like a murder in the corner of your room. And in that moment, then you react, your heart races and everything else. All that adrenaline kicks in. It's a real proper physical reaction to the potential threat of somebody standing in the corner of your room. But once your reactive brain has made that decision, your thinking brain can kick in later on and go, it's just a dressing gown on the back of the door. But of course, once you're in that state, it takes ages for you to calm down. Maybe it's not a dressing gown for you. Maybe it's you think you've seen a spider in the corner of the room, you react to that, and then when you come back and you look at it properly, you realise it was just a bit of fluff or something. So when you get overwhelmed, then the reactive part of your brain, that emergency brain, kicks in much, much quicker. Another example of this happens whenever we get really, really hungry, or if you've had a bad day at work, then you find yourself in the supermarket throwing all kinds of stuff into your basket that you don't normally want. Your emergency brain is making really fast decisions. It's going, we're hungry and we're grumpy, we need sugar. So it throws all the sugar kind of products in there, and that's what you crave. When you get home and you realise that you've actually got nothing in there that you can eat for tea, you've got biscuits and crisps and cake and things like that. So there's a wee example of what happens when we get overwhelmed. Most dogs have a normal kind of tolerance for overwhelm, but rescue dogs and teenagers have a much, much more reduced tolerance to overwhelm. So their brain, their overwhelm bucket is very, very small. So it doesn't take very much to fill that up. So if we think about what it feels like to be a rescue dog, when they come into a new home for the first time, absolutely everything they can see, hear, touch, lick, sniff is brand new to them. They will never smell any of it again. You will be vaguely familiar. Perhaps they've met you before, but perhaps they haven't. And with street dog rescue, often dogs are brought to you. The first time you meet your dog is when they're handed to you from the back of a van. So in these cases, every single thing your dog is going to come across for the first few days is going to be brand new. And that is going to take up an awful lot of space in their overwhelm bucket, in their brain. They're going to have to get used to your new TV, the way that things smell in your house, your carpet, other pets, every visitor. Every single thing is brand new. Unlike a dog that's been living with you for years and years and years, they learn something new every day, and that was fine. Puppies' overwhelm buckets are massive. They have such a huge capacity to take on new things, and there's good reason for that. They're designed to be experiencing life for the first time. When they're little. Our rescue dogs are not designed for this. So it's overwhelming. So their overwhelm bucket fills up really, really fast. So you can get around this to a degree by making sure you give them plenty of space, plenty of time. If they want to hide, let them. If they want to sleep somewhere else, let them choose their spots. Let them get this rest, because all of this rest is what helps them clear all that out, makes them fresh for the next set of new experiences. So the more of this we can give them, the more of this we can let them have, the better. This is not as simple as it sounds, because a lot of rescue dogs come with a lot of anxiety and they won't sleep. So it's kind of this self-defeating thing when you first get them. So the first few days of having a rescue dog, this is why we talk about this initial period as being such a dangerous period. Almost anything can happen at this time. Your dog is not behaving normally. They are responding to everything. They are full of overwhelm. They are anxious. They don't know what's going on. Once they've started to kind of take all this stuff in and less stuff feels new to them, then they'll start to relax a bit more and you can see what their normal behaviour is. But those first few days are crazy for them. So we don't want to be introducing new things to them that are not necessary at this time. We don't want to be taking them, if we can avoid it, we don't want to go to the vet, we don't want to go to the groomer, we don't want to take them for a walk even during this time, because they've got enough to cope with just by being in your home and your garden. But yes, so that's how their overwhelm bucket starts to fill up. The teenager bucket is just smaller. They are anxious some days, they lose tolerance, they're really just thinking about themselves. They're not trying to experience the world anymore, they're not interested in that. So teenagers also have this problem with overwhelm. Plenty of naps, if you can get them, is the way around that. But once a dog becomes overwhelmed and they become reactive, then they can make mistakes in their behaviour. So maybe they become reactive to another dog because that dog has come over to them while they're feeling like this. They really are bursting with experiences in their brain. They've got no room to meet another dog in there, and they snap at the dog. If it makes them feel better, then this can start to become a new behaviour this way too. Anything that makes your dog feel better is likely to become a future problem. We talked about this in the experience. It will become a habit. So when a dog comes into a space of another dog that's maybe a little bit afraid or is in that overwhelmed state, their emergency brain will kick in. They'll perform a behaviour. Probably they'll bark or lunge or something like that at the other dog. The other dog will move away, or the people will take their dog away, whatever. And that will make your dog feel better, and it will make him feel safer. He controlled his environment. The thing that was scaring him went away, and therefore in that moment it is very common to create a reactive behaviour problem. And it might not have been a dog that came into their space. Perhaps a bike ran past them, or a person might have jumped out of a bus or, right near them, and it might have just startled them. These things you're unlikely to have even noticed. But to your dog, who was already in a state of overwhelm, these are big, big things. And this is where reactive behaviour often comes from. So you will never be able to look back and go, I can remember an experience where another dog attacked my dog, or a person was mean to my dog, or this, or whatever. You'll never remember that exact moment. But if that's the case and your dog was a rescue dog or a teenager, then most likely it was just because their very, very reduced capacity for experiences had already become overwhelmed. We can't talk about behaviour without talking about mum. Lots of behaviour, in particular anxiety, confidence, resilience, is affected by the way a puppy is looked after by their mum. And not just after they've been born, before that as well. Nutrition that gets through to your puppy can change the way they are. But I talked about that oxytocin that is released when mother shows love. This can come from suckling. There are two molecules actually, one in the manufacture of milk and one in the release of milk that your puppy will experience whenever they suckle from their mum. And they've picked out these molecules, they know what they are, and they include them in a medication that you can get, which is called Zylkene, Zylkene. I'll pop a link for that in the comments. And basically what this does is it simulates those molecules and it gives the puppy that feeling of suckling from mum, that warm, happy feeling. But that warm, happy feeling does not just affect the way they feel in that moment. Once that has been built up over time, then it creates a much more confident and resilient dog or human or whatever mammal. This is not just exclusive to dogs or people. All mammals will benefit from this, that comes from the breast milk, that comes from suckling from mum. So if they have, maybe they've had problems when they were growing up, they didn't get enough milk from mum, so they had supplementary feeding from their breeder. Maybe mum wasn't there at all, or maybe she wasn't well nourished during pregnancy. There's so many different things that can affect the way they behave. And then as they grow up, the mum's experiences will start to then impact on their behavior too. So when they get to 2 and 3 weeks old, they start to really take their environment in. They are looking to explore their environment. But if their mum is showing anxiety towards things, then naturally they will too. So say the mum had a visitor and she doesn't like strange people coming near her. So she would have reacted defensively towards that visitor. The young puppies will have noticed that, and they will start to think that maybe they should be more anxious around visitors as well. These very, very early experiences can make a huge difference, and it can make a lot of work to try and undo that, which is why we often try to encourage people when they're getting a puppy from a breeder to really watch mum and dad as well, if he's there, other dogs in the household, and to really get a sense of how that puppy's brought up. A puppy that's been born into somewhere like a puppy farm, a puppy mill, those dogs and the mums are going to be terrified in there. They're not going to be looked after properly. They're going to miss out on nutrients. They're not going to feed their puppies properly, and they're going to be behaving very defensively towards their environment and things that is happening around them as well. So these puppies come from those environments already at a disadvantage, and that's more work for you to do later. Another thing that will affect their behaviour, and particularly I'm thinking of mouthing and overexcitement and discipline and things like that, is that a puppy is supposed to be disciplined by their mum. Some puppies need more than others, but puppies that are taken away from their mum before 8 weeks probably missed out on some really important discipline. Again, this is putting them at a disadvantage when they come to you. More work for you to do to try and help them learn things like bite inhibition. They'll learn that from their litter mates too. So all of those experiences they have in their litter are there and they're important. So if you've got your puppy after 8 weeks, then a lot of this work will have been done. They will learn their bite inhibition from their buddies. And they will have learned how to be told off, and that's normal to be told off and things like that. So these are really important experiences that they need to get from their mom, and there's some anxious experience that we would rather they didn't. These things will put them at an advantage or a disadvantage when they go to their new homes. So checking out a home, doing your absolute best due diligence to check that your puppies come from a really loving home, they're well used to being handled, they're not afraid, is going to set you off onto a really good path. But if that's been missed, then that will be a huge driver of future behaviour as well. So there are so many different ways that your dog's behaviour now can be affected. quite a few of them you might not have even been there for. People often do blame themselves for the way their dogs behave. You just shouldn't do that. There are so many other things that are affecting the way your dog is behaving, whether they need a vet because they're not well, there's some pain, they've had experiences even with their mum long before you even pick them out. Maybe they're a rescue dog, they had experiences before you met them, then the whole process of being a rescue dog, all of that anxiety that's in there, all of this will contribute to the way your dog's behaving, but it certainly is not because they are being defiant or they are being naughty. When a dog is showing unwanted behaviour, it's because they're trying to tell you something. Something is wrong, a need hasn't been met, they need a vet, they need something. So get your Sherlock hat on and start trying to figure out what exactly it could be that's caused the behaviour problem to occur in your dog. And see where do you start trying to fix that. I hope that's been useful. Check out that needs video. That will definitely help you pinpoint, even if you can't figure out where the behaviours come from, where to start trying to fix it. So that's a really useful video, so check that out. And I will see you in the next video. Take care for now. Bye bye.